Scattered across the sands of Egypt are the mysterious ruins of one of the most remarkable civilizations ever to emerge on Earth. Pyramids made up of megalithic blocks, temple buildings made of precisely carved stone, and elaborate underground chambers are scattered across the region's landscape, each shrouded in mystery, proving Egypt's great historical significance. Alongside the physical finds are the narratives woven into Egyptian culture, carved into the walls of tombs and ceremonial structures that speak of the majestic past of the ancient civilization that emerged here. Scholars believe that the earliest civilization to emerge on the banks of the Nile was the dynastic Egyptian one, which rose in the 3rd millennium BC. During this period, it built monuments such as the pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx. But when we look at Egyptian legends, we find myths that speak of a golden age on Earth in which humans evolved together and a civilization flourished. According to fragmentary legends studied by researchers, Egypt's history stretches back much further in time by tens of thousands of years. In this video, we go back to explore the myths associated with the age of Zep Tepi, a golden age of civilization that flourished tens of thousands of years ago. This is not just the lost history of ancient Egypt, but a journey that will take us deep into the mysteries of our past. Long before the rise of the Roman Empire and its emperors who would conquer a vast territory stretching up from the Mediterranean, complex cultures existed in places like Africa. The most remarkable of these was the Egyptian civilization that flourished along the banks of the Nile. Established archaeologists suggest that the dynastic Egyptians emerged from a loose collection of tribes around 5,000 years ago and formed the first unified culture in the region. This was achieved by Menes, a semi-mythical figure who is said to have united Upper and Lower Egypt around 3150 BC. According to separate legends, however, this was not the first civilization to arise in Egypt. In fact, some scholars believe that the dynastic Egyptians were the last civilization to arise on the banks of the Nile. Those researching the true origins of this part of the world are often confronted with a single phrase, Zep Tepi, which both fascinates and baffles archaeologists as it attempts to uproot the accepted chronology of history. Zep Tepi refers to the first time, a distant era that occurred before the rise of the dynastic Egyptians. It is described as a time when the gods walked among us on earth. The texts describe Zep Tepi as an age of awakening and a place where people of all races lived as one. For some, Zep Tepi is Genesis, the beginning of everything. Linguists suggest that Zep means time and Tepi means first. Together they form the first time or golden age of culture, where the gods with their advanced knowledge and powers played a significant role in building the first true civilization on our planet. Let us not forget that there is very strong evidence that Egypt was inhabited by humans from over 250,000 years ago. This so-called Age of Enlightenment is thought to have occurred tens of thousands of years before the present era, with some texts suggesting that it began as early as 36,400 BC. The suggestion that complex cultures existed on Earth in such a remote part of our past has proved challenging to established scholars. But there are hints in archaeology that such an era may have existed, and we are only now beginning to understand it as pioneering researchers step forward and offer an alternative history of Egypt that takes us further back in time than most people ever imagined. Conventional historians and archaeologists tend to dismiss the idea that Egyptian civilization stretches back tens of thousands of years, often citing a lack of evidence. But what if there was evidence to suggest that a mysterious culture existed on the banks of the Nile much more than 10,000 years ago? Could this allow them to broaden their horizons and rethink everything we know about this ancient part of the world? Archaeologists have attempted to date many of the impressive structures found in Egypt. For example, they generally date the construction of the Great Pyramid from 2550 to 2470 BC, claiming that dynastic Egyptians were responsible for this masterpiece. However, there is no way to date the stone, so they use limited evidence to suggest it was an elaborate tomb for the burial of Pharaoh Khufu. Yet to this day, no mummies or human remains of any kind have been found in its various chambers and corridors. In their quest to better understand the culture that once lived in this part of Africa, archaeologists continue to study the structures that lie both above and below the sands. In their endeavors, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. The largest and most significant Egyptian structures, often built using sophisticated mathematics and megalithic blocks, appear to be the most ancient of all sites. This revelation plays a significant role in rejecting the traditional narrative that dynastic Egyptians were responsible for building the sites. But if you disagree with us, you might be interested to hear the opinions of experts in the relevant fields. In recent years, the dating of the Egyptian Sphinx has come under scrutiny. One leading theory now suggests that it may have been built before the last ice age, which would make it more than 11,000 years old. The originator of this theory is Robert Schoch, an American professor of natural sciences at the College of General Studies in Boston, who earned a PhD in geology. His findings could potentially change everything we thought we knew about the origins of civilization in ancient Egypt. According to Schoch, strong water erosion is evident at the base of the Sphinx monument. He argues that this is the result of heavy rains and water runoff, the likes of which the Sahara Desert has not experienced in over 5,000 years. In conclusion, scientists say this must have happened during the tail end of the last ice age about 10,000 years ago, when sea levels began to rise, which some researchers believe led to devastating flooding. But Schoch goes further and argues that the Sphinx could be as old as 30,000 years, suggesting it was built during the period known as Zep Tepi. These alternative theories could potentially change our understanding of history. Archaeologists are under the impression that the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid were built by the same culture. There are several reasons for this, and include the style of workmanship and the use of uniform stones. This has led some alternative researchers to suggest that the Great Pyramid was built in a similar or earlier period. When we carefully analyze the Great Pyramid, we see that it is aligned contemporary with the north. To be precise, it deviates from it by only 1/15 of a degree. This is an astonishing achievement, considering that there is no evidence to suggest that the ancient Egyptians had a compass or any such device. According to archaeoastronomers, the Great Pyramid aligned with north more than 13,000 years ago. Over time, true north changes due to the Earth's axial precession. Evidence also suggests that the three main pyramids of the Giza plateau were once aligned with the three stars of Orion's belt. However, the last time they were in perfect alignment was about 10,400 years ago. However, they may have originated in even older times. Further evidence for this is provided by an interesting paper published in Academia by Armando May. In it, after 20 years of research, the author suggests that not only the pyramids and the Sphinx, but also other monuments related to the stars were perfectly aligned at the beginning of the Golden Age of Osiris, 36,400 BC. All this evidence points to one thing. Egyptian history stretches back further in time than archaeologists are willing to admit. But if this is true, then perhaps the legends of Zep Tepi are more than just creation myths. Perhaps this really was humanity's golden age, in which civilization flourished, and it was here that the Egyptians and surrounding cultures gained the knowledge and wisdom needed to create new civilizations. When it comes to decoding the knowledge possessed by those who lived during the Zep Tepi period, it is possible to use the surviving monuments of Egypt to understand just how advanced they were. Their astrological arrangements, combined with the mathematical equations used in their construction and the very precision of the structures, suggest a lost history of Egypt. Researchers such as Freddie Silva, Armando May, Andrew Collins, and Matt Lacroix are of the opinion that Zep Tepi is not just a symbolic period, but an actual historical era during which advanced people, often considered gods, lived in Egypt. Here they played a significant role in the founding of humanity as we know it. Many of the provincial deities of the Egyptian pantheon are said to have lived there during this era. These deities, including Osiris, Isis, Horus, Ptah, Ra, Seth, and Hathor, are immortalized in history because of the role they played during the time of Zep Tepi. According to the texts, they descended from heaven, bringing with them knowledge and wisdom. After creating Egypt's first civilization, the gods decided to leave the region, but not before creating the line of the pharaohs. They handpicked a group of people to whom they entrusted their advanced knowledge and profound wisdom. These people and their descendants were charged with the task of guiding humanity. Over the following millennia, this advanced civilization in Egypt flourished, but unfortunately, according to many researchers, it perished as a result of cataclysm. Whether this was due to a meteorite strike or a flood remains a matter of debate, but it would explain why Egyptian civilization was forced to restart under the guise of the dynastic Egyptians, whose ancestors may have possessed the knowledge that was bestowed upon the people during the Zep Tepi period. An alternative theory suggests that the dynastic Egyptians discovered the remains of the Zep Tepi civilization and simply inherited the site from an older, unrelated culture. However, the evidence continues to point to the idea that ancient Egyptian structures are much older than established archaeologists are willing to admit. Only if we broaden our horizons and open ourselves to the evidence provided by researchers such as Schoch and May can we take a true look at Egypt's history. But is it possible that there really was a civilization there around 36,400 BC? To further your picture on this, continue with our video on pre-Egyptian megastructure built before the Great Flood, which you see on the left of your screens.